So let's talk about the 4 components to blocking. Now, first of all, to understand blocking, we have to kind of review what timing is. Our timing is transferring our weight into the ball on a physical level. If you just talk about timing, if you're watching somebody and you see good timing, they're shifting their weight into the ball on time. Okay? It's that little spike of energy to get your weight into the ball. If you don't get your weight into the ball and pause, you can visibly see someone that's not on time. Okay. So if on a physical level, timing is getting your weight into the ball, shifting on time. It's a brief spike, is why it's hard. Blocking is what gives you that click. Blocking is what gives you that spike of energy, because when you shift your weight, you're in position and you shift your weight, you have to have something to come to a stop to propel the bat forward so that you don't end up lunging and not able to get the bat out. So you're able to stay behind the ball and throw the barrel, all right? It's no different than a lot of things when you throw. When you throw, you have to, you're shifting your weight, you block, you stop, and that's how you get that whip. Right, so there's 4 components to hitting. And as you remember, I said blocking, I call it the 3 booms, the boom, boom, boom. The first boom, land, the energy spike is a boom. Second boom is contact. Your third boom is your return. So it's boom, 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 right? But there's 4 components to making that happen, right? The first one is your front leg has to use your brake, right? So if you commit, if you have flow, generally what players do is they just reach a little bit because they're already shifting. If you have a player that's not shifting, that's not committing their weight, then that weight shift right there, oftentimes it ends up turning into a quit, or they hook the ball, they get around it, or they're kind of running away from the ball. So you have to get into position, and you have to rely on your ability to block. So the first thing, the first component, is your ability to have that front foot be a brake. So you land, your knee's slightly bent, but as you swing, it locks out. So that's the first part of it. That front leg acts as a brake, all right? And as we go through it, it locks out, and then it bends again when the back leg straightens out. Okay. So that's the front leg brake. The second aspect of blocking is getting that weight into that front hip. Okay, if you don't get your weight into your front hip, you land and the weight doesn't get into that front hip, the weight will get here, you'll stop yourself, and you'll post up. Your hip will fly open. So you'll land like this, your hip will fly open. You'll be there, stop, hip flies open. If you land, you get across that hip, then you end up doing this. You end up getting there, leg locks out very, very briefly at contact, and then it bends again, and you never fly open. Your hips can't open up because you're swinging across that hip. Okay, that's another. It's a technique that allows players to scissor kick. All right, so, and it's the same feeling that you get and the same mechanics getting into that front hip as you do when you hit a fungo. You throw it up. First thing, your front foot is a brake. It stops you, right? So you throw it up, it stops you. Second, but because you're over your front foot, it's not that strong. It does what it needs to, but you're going to be over your front side. You'd keep going if you didn't have other things to help you block. So that second component is that front hip. So when you hit a fungo, front foot and that front hip. So you hit across the front hip. That gives your upper body the stability to rotate against the lower body. So you throw it up, front foot, front hip, you're able to torque or explode, rotate against the lower body, all right? The third component is your posture. So you got front foot, front hip, and posture. Your posture teeter-totters, you lean forward, lean back, you wanna find the balance. If you go a little bit too far forward, you're gonna go into a front pike. You don't want that. You don't want to lean back too much because then you're running away from the ball. For instance, if I'm gonna hit this ball and I'm running away from it too much, I may hit that. But what if it was just a couple inches further out front? Then I'm gonna hit it off the end, okay? So I gotta stay on the ball, so that gives me a little bit of range. So I need my front foot, my front hip, and I gotta get my posture right, which kind of blends in, it's nuanced. It blends in with orienting correctly, all right? And then the fourth thing is the back leg coming into play where it firms up. As the back leg firms up, then it puts pressure on the front leg to push even harder. And you'll see, oftentimes you'll see a player, and I think we've reviewed this already, where a player will swing and then they'll do this. And they're not quite sure what they're doing, but they're taking, let's say they're taking batting practice and they hit it and they do this. And they just feel like they're not getting the head out. Well, because your legs kind of work, they work together and they work off of each other, if you just give it a little bit more time, transfer, they push back, push forward, and then push back again, you can catch yourself with your back leg. Now, that's not something you think about. You just have to wait a little bit to you can feel yourself catching yourself with your back foot. So let me just simplify it for you. If you feel like you're doing this, okay, you're leaking a bit, all right? So what you do is just hold it just a little bit until you can catch yourself with your back leg. You just hold it until you can feel it. Because we don't use mechanics, we use feel. We have to summarize all our techniques into one experience, one feel. And so it's not that we're ever thinking about one thing at a time. We don't. When you rehearse, you can do that. When you rehearse, you can, think about one part of it. Okay, I'm going to get in my front hip. Okay, I'm going to get my posture right. All right, get that right. Maybe it's a little off. Maybe it's back. Okay, let's get my posture right. There it is. Well, my back leg's not straightening out enough. It's not firming up. It's not stable. Because remember, that's not stable. That's stable. Okay, so if I get stable with the front and back, it forces the front leg. Look, if I keep this limp, then the front leg eases up. It can't push back hard because if it does, you're going to fall back. So what it'll do is you'll ease up and you're vulnerable to leaking forward. So those are the 4 areas to blocking. Front foot break, into your front hip. You go across that front hip. Another thing you could say is you want to cut the corner across that front hip. You cut the corner.